how did you make your way to basic income?
Welfare rights always made sense to me because from my days of being an activist, I came up to Harvard to go to graduate school in history in 1968. I had been on the margins of the civil rights movement and an anti-war movement in Jacksonville, Florida, and not in Jacksonville, but in Tallahassee, Florida, where I was a student. But I was mainly trying to get out of the South. So I came up. I found that people at Harvard were not what I thought they would be, so I left and went to do a lot of activism. And I met the folks who were doing SDS, radical student activism, and right next door to them was the Welfare Rights Organization. And they had the good mimeograph machine. And they had good women there speaking about things, and I spent more time with them than I did with my wonderful male comrades. And they started teaching me a lot more. And they helped me get a job with a Head Start that was newly founded and was run by low-income welfare recipients who were the parents in the Head Start program, and they taught me. And then I knew what I wanted to do, which was to keep talking and teaching about poverty and U.S. history and public policy. And so I did that pretty determinedly from 1970 through today. I loved it. Taught me. I am so much wiser.
But welfare is not basic income necessarily.
No, it isn't, but it was in those days. Welfare.
So explain that a little bit, how.
In the late 60s and the early 70s, the Welfare Rights Organization, George Wiley, and came out of the Poor People's Campaign, were arguing for guaranteed income. They argued for it hard. They got Milton Friedman on board. They got Richard Nixon on board as a family assistance plan for all, but it was a part of the platform. And for me, it made perfect sense, welfare rights for all. I never was averse to the idea of welfare. I thought we all had the commonwealth. We all needed the whole Constitution was about promote the general welfare, and we all needed it. And for me, it just seemed like a natural thing. And the welfare rights folks in those times, who were almost all low-income single mothers, African American not only, but a lot, understood that. And they said, listen, you all need welfare. You may not like the term, but you need it. And we all need to have a guarantee underneath ourselves that we can trust. And not we have to prove, but we just can trust. And they argued for it hard. They got some energy around 1972 with the presidential election with McGovern and other folks like that. And then it sort of faded. And then people started fighting against cutbacks and fighting for specific things. And some of the best welfare rights folks kind of got tired of it fairly soon because it was just fight back rather than pushing for. And for me, for me, it stuck with me. It was like one of those birthing things for me as a political person, as a thinker. And I wrote about it and talked about it and stayed involved, not as much as I wish I could have been because I was essentially working with folks and teaching and doing the education thing, but it hit I wrote about social movements, and I wrote about social movements providing services, and how people did that, and how the farm workers did it, how the women's movement did it, and it was for me the essence of what the welfare rights folks were. They just helped each other, and they tried to build a radical movement, and so it's not like separate from my history. It just seemed so real. And I feel like it's helped me to organize my thoughts. It helped me to teach. It helped me to understand why it's essential to talk about it, even though everybody says it's not popular. And you will offend people by talking about poverty, and you'll lose people by talking about welfare. And I say, well, you offend people if you talk about death. You offend people if you talk about illness. But it's a part of what we are living with in this world, and if you can't talk about it, you can't do it. And then so I always kept talking about it and speaking about it to audiences I didn't want to hear. And then when I sort of got introduced to the basic income idea in the 80s, at least, maybe even sooner, I thought, oh, that's the next extension. Basic income says that you've got a floor underneath you, whoever you are. You don't have to be very poor. You can be very rich, but it's like an allowance that you get. Like my children, I gave them allowances early on, set amount. I didn't care what they spent it on. It was theirs. And periodically I raised it because they were older, but that was my choice, but it was their basic allowance. And I think that's what basic income is that we all, because somebody loves us, like our parents, like society owes it to us to help us to be without having to be asking all the time for something. It's a way to say, hey, you're okay. This is what you have. It's not going to be enough. You're going to have to do other things. But here you have it. It belongs to you. It's a expression of your worth and dignity, and you don't have to beg for it. It's there. And we all have it, no matter who we are. And then if we make a lot of money, and we certainly will understand if that's all we get, we understand how little it is, and we won't have the kind of, I see it as a way to not think that somebody else is getting something that they don't deserve, and they're getting these great welfare Cadillacs. They're getting it too, and then that's all they have. If they don't get more, if they don't have the chance to work more, it's going to be hard, but they shall have it too. We all have it. And then if you earn what you hope to earn, you'll be paying it back. And now I would say to them, listen, don't think you're going to be as secure as you thought you might be. You can go to school, you can go to college, you can, you have all this debt, you can have, some man can disappear and leave or not, you have a kid, you try hard, but you will not be as secure as you wish you were, even if you do all the right things. And another reason for basic income is you've always got that allowance back there. You can walk out the door if the man gets weird. You can find another job without having to be stuck there, so it just feels not what you want to do. You're not going to be happy just on basic income, but it's there. It's your allowance. And let's talk about then what you'd spend it on, how you'd feel like we could do it. But don't think it's not a good idea and not something that could happen. It's really important to us. All of us know we have it, and everybody has it.
How will the basic income affect women, especially?
Well, I think it's especially important for women because everywhere women, if they're doing child rearing or caregiving in general with parents or other people, they are less powerful in the market of the world, capitalist job market, but also you can get other jobs besides, worse. They are more vulnerable to things to make it harder for them to just earn. And having a basic income underneath them gives them security a little bit more. Gives them a feeling like if I have to leave that job because it doesn't work, because the boss is weird, because it just doesn't work, or my kid gets sick, or my mother gets sick, I know what I have behind it. I'm not afraid and alone. And being in a situation where your fear is not a fear of destitution, whether you've known it or not, is an essentially empowering thing. I hate that word in some ways, but it's empowering because it says, I'm not here all by myself. And it comes without my having to go to a welfare office. It comes nowadays, one of my favorite things about the technology stuff, it can come in my bank account the same way your paycheck does everything else, and it just goes in and you can have your little EBT card, or not, your cash card, and that'll be there and you can watch it. But I think it makes, for women especially, not just from men, because men are very important to women, but it gives them their own sense of who they are. And it gives you your own place in the world, separate from your husband, your man, your family, and even your children. That's at least what you have. You have something. I think it's really essential for women to feel that and to have that, and most women don't, unless they have a trust fund and they were rich.
A lot of women grow up being defined by that they're somehow going to be always dependent on the male.
Right.
Somewhere. Right?
Well, and it's true. What it would give women is an easier sense of being able to say no to the men in their lives or the family people in their lives, or to say, yes, this is where we're going, and I'm going to use my basic income for this. I'm going to make myself get there. I'm going to change myself as a nurse, or a hairdresser or whatever. It's mine. It comes to me, and I will use it for that, and you can't have it. Nobody else can have it, and I get to choose how to use it. And I feel like it gives you that what women have talked about as a sort of essence of feminism is that women are people too, and we all have our own lives and our own hope for autonomy, and that since the world has had us more connected to men and families for things that we want caregiving, we want love, we want to be able to depend on people. There's nothing wrong with depending on people, but it gives us a base for that dependence rather than a fear that we have to depend on somebody because we got nothing else. And that's, for me, the essence of being a a person in the world, and especially a woman, where you're not stuck. And that's, for me, the wonderful appeal and the appeal to women. I think they've done studies, but I certainly know from all of my experiences that women have a much easier time with the idea of basic income and the fact that they would just have an allowance there. They'd have an ability to get some minimal planning and control in their lives in terms of money, be security in a different way. And so people would be able to think from early on, well, how am I going to use my income, my basic income check? How am I going to use that dividend? Am I going to use it for extra kind of training? And I'm going to use it for, risking doing my own thing? Am I going to use it to leave this man in my life or to sort of move on more independently? But they wouldn't be as afraid, and they would be able to plan for something being there. I've often said this, that rich people, including rich women, who have trust funds, have this very special security. Their trust fund check, it's like my kid's allowance, except it's enough. It's going to be there, and it's yours, and it's in your name. And it creates a different sense of possibility and freedom, and I think less of the fear of being afraid that you got nothing if you make a bad choice. And I think that's another piece of it.
Do you have any thoughts to how it should be financed?
Well, I think what a number of people have said at this conference is that that's not the issue. The issue is we spend a lot now on a whole lot of things publicly, and most of them drive us crazy. And if we decided to spend that on all of ourselves, it would basically be taking some of the place of that. And for the people at the way up, from the bottom to 2/3 up, what we know is if you got income, you spend it. And so it puts it back in the economy. Yeah, you'd pay taxes if you were in a situation where it wasn't all you had, and most people wouldn't want it to be all they had. We're never going to have a millionaire's basic income, but it is a way to know what the floor is and to be able to go forward, and the cost will come back to all of us in income. It'll come back to local businesses in income. It'll come back to schools in income. It'll come back to silly things that people might want to do in income. I think what's important is that it goes around and around in a circle. The way poor people are the greatest consumers around. They smart, better shoppers, and women especially, and they get it right back. They don't like to go as far, and they have a whole particular role as consumers. The people that have done basic income stuff in India and in some of the deepest poverty places say how important it is to give that experience to women and to not make it be, they have to turn in collateral. Some places they have to give, a collateral to get their grants or loans, and then it doesn't work.
Well, so you're basically saying there's enough money to do basic income?
Sure. I mean, we'd have to take more from the rich in various ways. Mm-hmm. We could, put them in jail and take it away, which is not a good idea. Or we could change the tax structure. We could do a whole bunch of ways to get money from the rich. It's not hard. We know they have it. And the more we take from the rich back into the society, the more the rest of us will not be so angry about the taxes that we pay. Part of the anger and the whole tax revolt is people know that it's gotten so skewed that they're paying more and getting less, and that the rich are getting away with running away and then every so often endowing something, and that's not an acceptable substitution. So I think it just creates a hope for equity and economic justice that makes more people be more willing to pay their taxes because they do see that they can get something back.
Will people be lazy?
No, nobody's lazy. Human beings, to live is to work. I mean, you want to be and not just work to survive. You want to have a way to live. But I have no fear that anybody will be lazy. I'm sure that any of us on any given day, if somebody were to say, what are you going to do with your $1,000 basic dividend check, the first time they'd say, whew, I'm going to take a vacation. But after a while, they don't want to take vacations. They want to do something else with it. They want to get the money to fix their house or fix another house, or to have a job that pays less but allows them with that dividend check to have it. I mean, there's so many things that you can do. And I don't think we have to the richest, laziest people in this world are people that are born really wealthy and have it, didn't even work to get it. And they got so much money, they don't have to. But they still work too, most of them. So I'm just not fearful of what I don't even know what laziness means. If you're depressed, you may look lazy, but you're depressed. If you're a mass murderer, you're still busy. Right? I mean, what to live is to work. It's too,
What do you want? What do you want to see happen with this now?
Well, I think that we are. This conference has made it very clear to me that it's not just an idea anymore. It's not just something we can talk about and philosophize about. That there are a range of different people in the world and in this country even that are willing to talk about, well, why can't it be different? Because we know some things are broken. And that means we got to find all the different ways, there's not one ways, to get people to believe it's not just an idea. Whether it's little experiments. We're talking very, very tentatively, me and 5 friends are talking in Massachusetts about using Massachusetts as a state that could try to initiate a basic income guarantee. We had Romney Care, we had health care before the U.S. and people used it, and it was good for us and it was good for the state. And it's the kind of state where if you look at the social values, maybe we could get people to go with it. We could maybe get our new Republican governor to think, this is be my way to prove that because it's not so foreign and it doesn't mean the bureaucracy that, we all hate in the same way. And we're talking about finding, and the labor people in Massachusetts are pretty open, and there's a really good effort there for free higher education and debt forgiveness for higher education, which is a big piece of why basic income could work. And I feel like it's a good place, but there's so many different things that people are doing. But I have hope that we can, with some of the folks in the basic income movement, not me, I'm not very good at implementing things because I say the wrong things. But I do think that the people that do, who are closer to that and have worked from the experience of getting health care reform in Massachusetts, which nobody thought we could do, and then nobody thought that Obama could do it. And there's millions of things wrong with both what we did and they did. It's not, but we got something through, which is Andre Gortz would call a radical reform, a reform that makes you want more, as opposed to think that nothing works. So that's how I that's the only place I am, so that's where I hope for it. But I'd like to see it in lots of places, and then people say, oh, I mean, it creates that, again, that raising of not only income but social security, which women often know more than men. They are the official worriers in the society, and they drive us all nuts. We drive ourselves nuts with worrying all the time, and then you can't do that, we got to worry. But it's true, and the less your worries are fully rational, the more you can get through them. And when you're a woman and you face the realities of any society, it's not impossible to worry. It's not wrong to worry. It's right to worry, except then it paralyzes you. So that's one of the things that I think it would help women a lot, to feel like they had a little bit of a reason not to worry so much.